Hello everyone and welcome back to the next episode of the Road to FIDE Master series on my channel. This is the episode number 77 in which I will cover the round number 4 from the Cracovia Chess Festival, and I will not lie to you, this might be one of my top 3 games ever. So let's jump straight into it. Because I was playing another candidate master, but as you can tell, yet another time I am playing a little bit, but still a lower rated opponent. I was kind of frustrated with that, and I wanted to make an example and push through with yet another win to finally get a better opponent. I was motivated, I had white pieces, and on top of that, I don't trust those candidate masters, I know that I got such title, but I consider myself to be the old school CM, let's say, because when I got the title, not that many players had it. And on top of that, I had to grind out for my rating, let's say. I'm not the type of junior player guy that can play 2 good tournaments and get like 300 rating points within 2 months and get the CM title, right? So this is one of my motivations actually to go to the FIDE Master title, because I believe it's significantly harder to get. Nevertheless, my point was I was playing another junior player with a significant rating jump recently. Was it deserved? Was it not deserved? As usual, I was not so sure. But as I've said, I wanted to give the example, make a statement. So not only did I want to win, but I wanted to win convincingly. And I decided to do that in the very best weapon of my opponent, which was opening preparation. Because from what I have seen during prep in his games was that he was very well prepared. So I said to myself, okay, maybe the old guy like me also can have some tricks and out prep younger opponent with my prep. Let's see how it went. We played very fast, trying to make a statement who is better, who is more prepared. So I also try to play the moves fast. We went into the Ruy Lopez main line actually with knight f6 and so on, but in here instead of bishop e7, b5 and bishop c5 was played, and we are entering the Archangel variation. In here I've prepared once more very first line, which is a4, trying to get the pawn on b5, rook goes away from the a file, c3, preparing d4, d6, d4, bishop b6, all the main moves, and at this point yet another main one, a5. This might need somewhat more explanation, because yes, I am giving the pawn away, and not only that, if my opponent would take the pawn with the knight, let's say, I would be actually willing to even sacrifice the exchange, and this is the kind of position that white wants to get, because I will be able, even though I am without some material, create amazing pressure, initiative, and this is objectively maybe even losing for black. So that's what you not want as black. So bishop a7 it is, obviously. And here there are few critical choices, I believe. Nowadays a3 is the main one, leading to some crazy and long lines. I saw the Caruana's preparation over 30 moves, 35, like no big deal, right? So instead of going into that one, because then I would not be playing against my opponent rated 2200, but rather Fabiano Caruana himself, I decided to somewhat deviate a little bit at this point from the main lines and go with bishop e3, which is still considered one of the top 2 or top 3 moves, but not so well known. At least that was my hope. Only hope, because my opponent apparently knew what to do, so he played bishop g4, pinning my knight. I needed to solidify both the knight and the pawn on e4 that was hanging to. ed, cd, castle, I hit the bishop, it goes away, rook e1, still main theory, knight before 2, and now I've played a move that might surprise you, but also you saw it on the thumbnail, which is rook c1. And on my right there was my friend Grandmaster playing, and he gave me that look like, what you're doing? Like, are you really allowing the fork to the rooks? And yes, it's not a blunder, it's my preparation, and I wanted to confuse my opponent. And as I've said, until this very moment I am confident that he knew what to do all along. Each move was played fast, each move was played confidently, but now I made a statement with the move number 16, rook c1, because I knew that it would be somewhat unexpected to just, allow this fork for him. And yeah, this is what I wanted. This is what I get. I outplayed, I outprepped my opponent, and I still know what to do. He does not what to do. What's the idea behind it? Well, I will give you just the shortcut of it, let's say. After knight d3, my point was to go to knight c6, and taking the rook is apparently a inaccuracy or even a mistake, because if he takes, I take. The idea of mine is that thanks to this weakness and this amazing rook, thanks to the fact that all the black pieces are somewhat uncoordinated and I have full control over the center, over the plenty of diagonals and so on, my initiative will become even bigger and bigger with each move, and it's really hard to navigate this position with black pieces due to this lack of coordination and plenty of weaknesses and so on. So yeah, this was my big idea, let's say. I got out of the comfort zone because for the many years I, let's say, struggled with any idea, comprehending it, like however can you and would you sacrifice the exchange, what for? This is kind of my getting out of the comfort zone type of thing, because I wanted to do it willingly on my own terms, knowing how to react further. My opponent kind of, figuring out what am I going to do and why am I allowing this fork, did not go for it. He played h6 move, which is, let's say, kind of usual in those scenarios, this variation specifically, but in here already it make black's position simply weaker. I pushed g4 because this is the move I also had in my prep, because once the bishop goes away, even though it attacks my pawn on e4, I can push d5, exchanging the dark squared bishops, and when it happens, my rook is protecting the pawn. And the other idea of rook c1, not only allowing the fork, was that I want to take over the control over the c5, because the most common idea in here for black is to push c5. If the pawn on c5 would be okay, now the pawn is fine itself, right, because it's protected. The protected pawn protects the knight, and everything seems fine for the opponent. On top of that, this pawn of mine is hanging because it was overextended and so on. But in here I got what we all love, which is en passant, and thanks to this move my rook is protecting the pawn, the knight cannot recapture it. c5 is not possible. If c5 is not possible, then the knight in here is kind of stuck without the defense and so on. So my position is already very good. And on top of that, thankfully, even though this position specifically did not appear on my board during the preparation, I knew that in some circumstances, at this moment after rook e8 that was played, I can simply abandon the pawn. If I didn't know it, perhaps I would be willing to play a move like queen e2, slowing down my initiative a little bit, but in here I knew that I can kind of give it away. That's why my thoughts were immediately gone to, let's say, knight d4 move, because I wanted to centralize my knight. Only afterwards maybe prepare this move or that one with this idea. But all in all, the idea of mine is that with this move I am furthermore solidifying the fact that c5 will not appear ever on the board, and this knight will become even bigger of a weakness. The whole problem is obviously with this pawn, so I had to consider both taking the knight and then bishop, knight and then rook and then bishop, firstly the bishop, what else? Bishop, rook and the knight. So basically all the possible scenarios of taking the e4 pawn I had to include. I believe there were like 4 combos of that. But once I did that, I knew that it's all okay. My opponent in the end went for knight e4, takes, and my point at the end of the variation was always queen e1. This is the problem for the opponent. So I thought that my pawn on e4 is protected by my queen, even though it seems funny how in the world can this queen protect this pawn. This is how, indirect defense, because once the pawn is taken I have the double attack. But at this point the variation does not stop. So before I calculated knight d4, and once I got to this position, knight d3 is a possibility once more, as in the previous stage of the game. So I had to see the knight d3 and continue my calculations, and I found the line of queen e4, knight c1. I am still down some material, and on top of that, knight wants to escape and take my bishop, so I have to play bishop c2, because not only I am taking away the squares from the knight, but also I am creating a battery towards the opponent's king. Therefore, he has to react and block the problems. But now, not only will I try to hunt down this knight, but also I have the fork that I forgot to mention earlier. Thanks to this fork, I will be getting the exchange back to queen e8 with the attempt of, inviting me to exchange the queens will obviously not work because my queen is now protected, so I can simply take the rook. And once my knight is taken, I can play queen e1, firstly attacking the knight, secondly, very importantly, taking away the b4 square, so that after knight a2, bishop b3, the knight is finally hunted down and I am getting the advantage. So this is the very moment I had to calculate and be sure of at this point when playing knight d4. So kind of an exercise, I will tell you, to calculate actually 10 moves deep. At the same time though, if you think about it, there were not so many routes left or right? Not so many ways in which black could have changed anything, because once he takes on e4 this way or the other and queen e1 is on the board, he would have to give a fork, take the rook, protect the checkmate, go away with the queen, take back the knight, and now try to escape. So all his choices were very forced. So in here, I did not have to calculate all the big different branches of the tree variation, just, one long one, and it was kind of easy in the end, actually. So yeah, that's why I went for knight d4, that's how we got into this position, and that's why also my opponent did not choose knight d3, he instead went for queen g5, which actually I did not expect that much, and the idea of it all is that yes, I am still hitting here and there, but my queen was somewhat overloaded because the queen is attacking my rook, and also the point is that this queen will help any of black piece that will take on d5 later on, so maybe this move is a good one because it not only delays my attack but also puts some defensive work into place. So in here I started to calculate variations and I spotted that the most obvious, most human way of winning this, let's say, is rook d1, simply. I am going away from the attack, putting some more pressure along the d5, but it's not about the pressure or the, let's say, indirect defense of the pawn, but rather the knight or the queen. I will show it in a second, because after rook d1, idea of the opponent would be to take bishop d5. Not knight d5, because, I take the bishop, no question, but bishop d5, because the idea is that once I will take the bishop, now obviously knight escapes, and if I take the knight, c5 is incoming. And this is another threat that from the distance was not visible to me. Thankfully though, my pieces were so well coordinated that with adding even more coordination of queen d2 move, I would be suggesting the queen trade, and the trade itself is not that good yet if I don't know if I will get the material, but the point of the trade is obviously, okay, to trade, but at the same time to remove the defender of the bishop. So if you imagine that I would play queen e1 after cd4, queen is alright, protecting the bishop, which is alright, black is alright. Obviously, yes, I can have like f4 move trying to, in the end, finally distract the queen, but my point is that this is it. This is the scenario that that black have wanted, right? So instead of doing that and allowing that, I have queen d2 move, and if my knight is taken, I firstly exchange the queens, and then the bishop is obviously weak, so I can take it. If my opponent takes the queen first, very similar thing happens, right? Note that much has changed. And the only other option for my opponent would be to try maybe taking here and there, but thanks to the coordination I mentioned earlier, I can take with the knight, going away from the attack, and I'm winning here. However, I did not like the fact that I am cruising through, and in this very position I would have only the knight for 2 pawns, and the pawns are, like taking away all the squares for him, so until I will win this game, it will be some time, like 15 minutes or maybe an hour, depending on what opponent might want to do, how long would he want to suffer and so on. For that reason, and for the reason that I've mentioned earlier, that my prep has worked so tremendously that we are on the move 23 and I had only one moment to think about. In here I decided to create myself a calculation training. So, okay, rook d1 was fine, but by following the rule, okay, fine is fine, but let's look for something more, I decided to look for something more. And guys, I found it. I found even better move than rook d1, which required some more calculation, crazy ones, but that's exactly what I wanted and liked, because if I knew I'm winning and I have so much time on the clock, I might as well go for the points of style, let's say. Obviously, do not do this at home, but for me it felt funny at the time, and I was full of confidence thanks to the first rounds of the tournaments. I decided, okay, let's do it. So, what is the move? What is the variation? I took on c7, and it seems logical at first, right? Because I took the pawn, I maintained the attack. So what's the problem with this move? The problem is that after knight d5, which previously was not playable because the bishop was hanging, I cannot take the bishop now because my rook is hanging. And if so, if I will go away, maybe here to attack either of the weak pawns, that's not enough, because then the bishop will be protected this way or the other with like queen f4 or rook e8 move or something similar. So both the pieces, the light ones that I wanted to take, either of them, are protected. So maybe I will get the pawn here, maybe I will get the pawn here. But is it that clearly winning? Not so sure. For those reasons, after rook d1 I have plenty of routes to win. In here there is only one to win convincingly, but I went for it, I found it. Rook takes f7, guys. This is the craziness I got myself into because I was simply too bored, let's say, during the classical game of chess. What's the idea? I've spotted that once the pawn on d5 will be taken and then pawn on f7 will be taken, my bishop in here will be amazing. That is what caught my eye. So after further calculation, obviously after rook f7, if the king accepts the rook, I can take the bishop now and then the knight. So not only will I get the material advantage of two pieces against the rook, but also the pawn was there on f7 taken, and also the king is very, very weak. So due to the initiative on the light squares, I will be simply winning some more material, if not checkmating even maybe. So this is amazing. That's why after rook f7, the rook is under the attack, but Black is kind of unable to take it. And he chose rook e8 move, trying to bring the rook into the defense, trying to coordinate the pieces. And yet another brilliancy on my part, the best, the very best move, rook f5. If my opponent did not want to take my rook once it was attacked once, I now give the rook to be attacked twice. Obviously the queen will never ever want to take it because like it will be lost, but bishop, you know, sometimes it might be tempting, but I am relying on yet another motive, which is obviously the pin. The rook on e8, even though it got into the defense, it's not protected, so my rook here is very, very fine. And if it's fine, I'm also attacking a little something here and there, right, with the rook. So after this move, my opponent did not have any good way to react, really. He chose queen g6, going away from the attack, solidifying the rook, maybe thinking of something along the e-file. But in here yet another brilliancy, third or even fourth in a row. Queen takes e4, guys. Queen takes e4. Why is it brilliant? Because if you think about it, if I take with the bishop on d5, I have plenty of problems, because after bishop d5, I cannot recapture the bishop because my queen is attacked. I cannot take the rook because the rook is protected, and I'm even without any advantage whatsoever. So the second best variation would be to play rook takes d5, because at least in here, even though the e-file has opened, I can take the piece on d5 because it happens with a check. But still, I'm not sure if this position is so easily winning, because once again I have this advantage, but comparing this position to the other one, it's clear that the position of the pieces matters, and at this point it's not that clear to say that my pieces are active, my king is safe and whatnot, so I had to find the very best move. Obviously from the distance, and thankfully I did it, queen takes e4. The idea behind it is simple. I now sacrifice the queen for the bishop. Once I will take on d5, I have two light pieces for the queen, and I will get simply the third one because of the double attack. It may seem easy now, but well, try to see queen e4 move when being at this very point. It's not that easy, right? So queen e4 it happened, takes, king can go to either h8 or h7. I expected queen h8, because after bishop e4 there are no discoveries yet, so queen e8 might happen. And in here I've prepared another brilliancy, knight e6, trying to sacrifice the knight, because if my opponent accepts it, then there is the very beautiful checkmate, and if he does not, I'm preparing rook f8 anyway, because it will be protected and I will be getting the queen and winning the game easily. Unfortunately, if I may use this word in such great game and position, my opponent went for king h7, and after bishop e4 it seems very clear that something is going to happen, and he simply resigned. There is no good move for the opponent, my pieces are dominating, queen will be taken shortly, king will be checkmated shortly. So yeah, this is it guys, under 30 move game, showing what I am capable of, and in terms of preparation, in terms of calculation, so it really indeed was a statement. So I was very proud of myself. I received even some congratulations. My coach himself told me that I played like an engine, and in here I will happily take that, because you know, it would be, if it would be like 80 move game and I would play with 99% accuracy, you may have some suspicions, right? But since it was purely calculation and so short, I mean, it's obvious that I just crushed the opponent, no question about it. So yeah, I was very proud. On top of that, one side note I will give you guys to end this video. In 2 games, my friend also played this guy, and I gave him this variation with only a slight change on the move, once more number 16, and bam, once more opponent was crushed. So this variation, if you want to play Archangel variation in the Ruy Lopez, you have to be prepared as black for the full fight, like a bull, really, like plenty of variations to be known. Anyway, this is it guys, one of my best games of my life, I would say. Really proud of it, and with the high hopes, tomorrow we'll see how I did in the round number 5, because finally I can spoil it. I got myself a better player, better opponent. We'll see how it went. As for this one, thank you all for watching. We'll see each other tomorrow. Bye bye.